Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jacob with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. We'll be talking about the Root brand product. I've been using the Root brand for several years now. The Trinity pack has been outstanding. Definitely helped during the COVID, craziness that was happening. Helped save a lot of lives over the years because of that. People using that, basically cleansing them, detoxifying them. So Root brands is basically an alternative natural solution for people to reach their highest and healthiest potential. And like I said, I've been using the product for several years, and it's definitely helped me get through some serious issues that I've had. I think I've been attacked quite a few times over the years by people that have come in and tried to infect me with some bad stuff. The Root has saved me, and it has saved a lot of people that have used it. Really, really great product. Now, the originator, Clayton Thomas, he focused on detoxifying and supplementation formulas and business ventures. His background has included environmental and human health solutions. An entrepreneur is in the healthcare industry. He has developed business models of analytical testing and medical practices to improve quality of care by identifying risk of the big three diseases, which are diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity, with additional risk factors. Clayton has served as a business development specialist in every aspect of wellness, sales, distribution, formulation creation, consulting, manufacturing, and now the architect of an entirely new method of business with the Root social sharing community platform. His mission is to improve the world through scientific and business approaches. Of course, his wife, Dr. Christine Rom, is, she was in the healthcare business and big farm for, decades. She worked on lots of stuff. And she realized that someone needed to come out and build formulas that were going to help humanity because of some of the things that she was seeing. So we've seen amazing things come out of Root Wellness, and we're going to continue to do that. Now, one of the things I like to show you guys is a video clip of Clayton talking about Clean Slate, and it's quite substantial what Clean Slate can do. It can actually help cleanse and recalcify, and not calcify, but recrystallize the pineal gland. That's right, he says, recrystallize the pineal gland. So let's listen to that little segment, and that should be quite inspiring for everybody.
Now, if you're looking at an electron microscope at Clean Slate, here's what you're going to see. You're going to see nanocrystalline fragments that will fluoresce under fluorescent light because they're crystals and they're polarized and they're putting off an amazing amount of energy that is actually communicating with your cells, detoxifying your cells, feeding your cells, recrystallizing your cells the same way it's doing to your pineal gland. Oh, wait, what? Yes, your pineal gland not only needs to be decalcified from the fluoride and the other heavy metals, it needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be recrystallized. What crystals do you use for that? You actually use nature's most abundant bioavailable source of silica, orthosilicic acid, which is derived from Clinoptilite. You don't believe me? We might even just put a link down here for you to make this really easy. So if you're looking for something that is going to remove all of the bad stuff that you're worried about right now, that could be graphene, that could be things that were injected into your friends that are expressing energetically to you. It could be things that you had injected into you that maybe you realized later on that were probably not the best thing to do. Then I'm going to give you the protocol that was actually proven to work 4 years ago. Oh yeah, that was in 2020. So here you go. Dr. Norbert Keshkesh has published a bunch of clinical case studies on this, and they've been published and not peer reviewed, expert reviewed, and published in a journal. So In addressing these situations, you don't just have to address one component, because this operating system is way more complex than you actually want to accept and understand. So you have to take care of your brain, your heart, your gut, your vagus nerve, the rest of the operating system all simultaneously. How do you do that? Well, first, you've got Restore, Clean Slate, and Zero In. We call this the Trinity, and these three products were actually used in the clinical case studies to reverse all of the issues pertaining to the complications that we previously addressed. How do we know this? Well, because the outcome showed it in every single case. Why does this work? Clean Slate is the most advanced mechanism of taking natural Clinoptilite. This is not a zeolite product. All these MLM companies that are selling zeolite products and that are pitching a zeolite detox, run. I've got 20 years in the space. I'm probably one of the leaders and the innovators in this entire category because of my opportunity to work in this category since 2005 and growing up in a veterinary practice over the last 45 years. Not only did I work with it the last 20, I was working with Clinoptilite when I was like 2, because Clino's been used in the veterinary industry and in the biotech industry for decades. So you have something in Clean Slate that is a very broad range of nanotized particles that still maintains the unique capability that Clinoptilite possesses by having its natural negative charge, which means it can grab onto and bind different heavy metals, different environmental toxins, different pollutants, different chemicals, and assist in them being removed from your body. At the same time, it's going to detoxify your system. It's going to help clean up your organs. It's going to help clean up tissue. It's going to help clean up your joints. It's going to help clean up your bloodstream. It's going to assist the process that's needed to detoxify your brain. We'll hit on that in a minute. Remind me. At the same time that it's working to detoxify your system, it's going to deliver the key trace minerals that your body needs, because simultaneous to removing the heavy metals and toxins, you have to deliver the trace minerals. If you don't, you're going to create a process called mineral gapping. You do not want this because it's counterintuitive and counterproductive to you getting well.
Yo.
So what do you think about that? So that video was really inspiring. I thought, were you talking about the nanocrystalline structure of the pineal gland and how the silicate from the root brand basically comes in and activates it so that it can have that the connection to God source that we all love.
I missed you.
That's pretty amazing, right?
I missed you. There's a lot we have to dive into because it's been a minute, but there's a lot that of disinformation, misinformation, and outright lies that have been going on in and around this space. Because one, I think because of the creative mind of that one, and what's actually happening in this ascension process. And there's, as I've learned from some of our new collaborators that are some of the key figures working behind the scenes in a lot of aspects, that areas that we're familiar with, that you've got evil and good, and a lot of good that have sold themselves in some aspects to evil. So a lot of what you see on social media, and you can actually see this in people's eyes. I won't drop a lot of names. It would get crazy. It'd probably offend a lot of people if I did. But if you take the time to analyze what people are actually saying, and analyze the content of which they're saying, you can see that they're probably manipulated in some aspects, or while they might not be evil per se, they've been skewed to some semblance of going away from good. So when you start to understand what we are, right? And I love what you're teaching a lot of your community on the aspects of frequencies and energy and the electrical components of the human body. And I can speak to LifeWave because I was one of like the first 20 distributors involved like 25 years ago, or 20. I know David Schmidt, Dr. Haltewanger, Warren Hanshey, the guys that started the company really, really well. It was actually David Schmidt that terminated me when I started on my detox work, which didn't make sense to me. But the the process of understanding that this is an electrical pathway, that the body is a biological antenna, and it's nice to have a wife who's a quantum physicist and a nanobiotechnologist that's been at the forefront of quantum physics and bioscience engineering in the human body, and that does not make her evil or bad. By the way, it does make her educated and knowledgeable of everything that's gone on and capable of reversing it all. And this is something that's really important because when you look at this process, it's interesting that I've actually been in little social media battles with a couple people that have called my wife evil, yet they've completely sold out. But and even some of the people that have made commentary to this are no longer on social media, like Anna Mahalchuk. She was making comments about, clean slate being used to create, bioassembling nanoparticles in the body. And she has since no longer on social media. And she lives in Yelm, Washington, which is close to where I grew up. And some of my clients of my parents actually, and some of my friends live in Yelm. And it's funny that when you put someone on notice that they should probably communicate directly, they go quiet.
Hmm.
But when you understand where we sit and what we are in a war, and it is a spiritual war, right? And we're seeing how this is starting to play out of what's going to happen. We are going to see absolute chaos. You've talked about this, Michael, for years now. We've talked about this for years, that there's going to be chaos ensuing, and you can see it. It's coming, and it's going to get worse.
Yep.
And all of this stuff that you're seeing played in social media is from the highest levels of our government. When do you see social media battles from business people and political figures saying, "Oh my God, they said bad things about me, so we're going to beef on social media," while they're working to collapse the financial infrastructure of the government all simultaneously to distract you with stupid social media commentary while other things get done? Kind of interesting. I'm not saying that that's all taking place, but oh, by the way, it's taking place. And the the aspect of understanding what this is, and that this system, your system, has been controlled and polluted and poisoned for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we have a chat, but I'll throw you the paper. Oh, maybe I can. While we're talking, the big part is this has been known. This plan, the real science behind what's been going on, has been known since 1976. Let that sink in. Let me see if I can throw this in the chat. It's not letting me throw a document in here. But can I share my screen? Can I present? Will this let me share my screen?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can present. You hit present, and then it's going to give you share screen at the bottom.
Share
Click on that.
screen. Let's do
Click on
this.
window, and then click on the window you want to share.
Use operating system. Hold on here. You're in the show. Present. Use operating system settings. This is getting deny. Present. Share screen. Share screen. I'm going to figure this thing out. Image file, slides, and PDFs.
After you click on share screen, you're going to see Chrome tab, window, and entire screen at the top.
Click the screen icon in your address bar to allow. This is getting too difficult. You know what? Here, I'm just going to WhatsApp this to you and you can do it.
Okay.
Maybe I'm going to send it. Why is yours not showing up on WhatsApp? Because you're a ninja. Can Tracy Joe send it to you real quick? Is she on here? Is she watching while you're doing stuff?
Can you send it in the? Yeah, she can send it to me.
Okay. There, have her pull up her WhatsApp. I just sent this to you. But here's the funny part. Hopefully, if she can drop this to you, we can pull it up as we talk. But there's one primary cause of every chronic degenerative disease, and the catalyst to all of the chaos that's been going on in our bodies, and it was published in 1976 with meta-analysis going back in the 1950s and 1960s. And it was, here's the fun part to this. We are going to hear people talk about an organization that has been hijacked and how we can't trust it. But the system, the beast, uses it as their primary reference, and that's the World Health Organization. Now, we know now that the World Health Organization, probably not the greatest resource for information when it comes to your health and science and real data. But in 1976, they published a phenomenal compilation white paper. It's 104 pages long. I just sent it. Tracy Joe's got it on WhatsApp. That showed that at the time they knew and published that mercury was the primary cause of 85% of all chronic degenerative diseases. This was in 1976, and this was looking at data back to the 1950s and 1960s. And this was important because in 1938, when they implemented the vaccine schedules and started vaccinating people, and they were putting a little mercury in those vaccines because of the use of thimerosal, which is mercury as an additive and as an adjuvant in vaccines. And before I dive into this mercury cascade and what it does, I want to make something really clear for this audience, because I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is sold out, and I've pretty well had that confirmed. And for everybody that's Maha and MAGA, answer one question for me. Have you ever seen a .gov at the end of it? Because I haven't. That means it's on us, it's on you, it's on me, it's on us collectively to solve these problems, because government's never going to solve it. Because you know what happens when someone gets in the swamp? They think that they're going to walk in it up to their knees, and when they end up to their neck, they start realizing that maybe they need a way out because they're not going to be able to navigate it that thought they were going to, right? Michael, you were taught this as a SEAL, but you guys were taught how to navigate an environment where you're up to your neck, or maybe you're going to end up underwater in an environment where there's a lot of crocodiles and a lot of parasites and a whole lot of shit, right? But maybe they've already killed members of your family, or maybe they put a bullet in your ear just to make sure that you'll pay attention, you'll capitulate a little bit, because they've sent the message. So there's no .gov at the end of this, regardless of who's in government now. They're not going to solve anything, because that's not where change happens. Change is going to happen through us. So if we go back to what the real problems are, before we shit, I forgot, I did my Trumpian looping here. The mercury aspect is the foundation to this. Vaccines are not the cause of the problem. Let me make sure that I reiterate that really clearly. And I'm going to give you the science and actually why this is all taking place, because it happened in 2008. I'd like to thank President Obama for doing this, because it was Obama's creation of the Affordable Care Act that created the chaos in PBMs, which is what's caused drug prices to go through the roof. It was the legislation that he put in research and pharmaceutical development as part of the Affordable Care Act that made traditional drug development almost impossible, which means the way that they legislated pharmaceutical development and research made it so expensive that it's damn near impossible for drug companies to justifiably develop and do the research to develop a traditional drug, to bring it all the way through drug development, to do the trials, to do the research, to find the efficacy, if there is any, right? That 40% mark that they look for. It's only 40% efficacy that they need to get a drug approved, which is a whole other issue. But Obama made that so expensive that they needed an alternative. And you know what the loophole was? That was the vaccine space. because in order to introduce a vaccine, well, you actually don't need the drug development pipeline. And because of the Vaccine Injury Trust, you have a pathway to development that has zero risk, almost zero cost in the development pipeline, and 100% security that when you bring a product to the market, if the data, the post-marketing analysis, which is required in drugs, which we do in nutraceuticals, but is required in drugs, that if one of these vaccines that you introduce to the market does kill people and does require a black box warning, that you're not fiscally responsible for any of the damages. Now, that was done in 2008 and created the pathway to get to where we are now. So we can say that vaccines are not the problem because we don't want to get killed. And we know that adjuvants that are added into them are. And I can tell you this because when my wife was at Harvard, she was actually working on vaccine research. And you know what she did? She actually created natural vaccines. Oh, so that means not all vaccines are bad, that they can actually have some benefit if they were used properly. But it's what they're putting into them, and it's also the mechanism that's being used, because you have companies that are all publicly traded organizations whose sole purpose is on quarterly income and quarterly revenue growth that requires them to continually innovate to produce more revenue so their stock doesn't go down. And they were provided the pathway to have very low entry into market with zero risk and nothing but upside potential, with no regard for the consumer base until a product was in the market and post-marketing studies were done. This is why you're looking at Ozempic. This is why you're looking at all these GLP-1s, right? They were fast-tracked into the market because they're vaccines, they're injectables, right? And this is why peptides and everything else are popular, because they're injectables. They're treating them as vaccines, which is why most of this stuff is going to get regulated really quickly. It is going to get pulled from the market. Now, I'm not one that's big on anything injected into the body in the first place, because I prefer endogenous production of most things, because if you start injecting things into the body, you're going to shut off natural biological pathways that are probably necessary for long-term health and development that you don't want to override. But people want to make money because they want to do it, because maybe they're not good. Maybe they were good by creation, but maybe they've been skewed a little bit, right? So you have to understand the real aspects of the pathways behind this. So when you look at these adjuvants that are added into a lot of these vaccines, which are mercury or mercury derivatives, and now aluminum as well, which are the two worst neurotoxins, and you can throw in lead, which is readily available in our environment, whether it's in pipes, whether it's in the soil, because of the use of coal, the use of lead-based gasolines a long time ago, because these environmental toxins don't leave. That when you understand mercury, mercury is the worst neurotoxin known to man. It's the second most deadly chemical that is not a radioactive isotope, behind dioxin. Dioxin is what they use to make Agent Orange. Dioxin's really good at killing everything. It's really, really effective.
Yep.
Mercury is really unique because it'll kill you in high doses, but it won't really kill you in most instances. It will destroy every system of the human body, but it'll do it differently in every organism. So is it not unique and very special? This is also the substance that's been used in maybe a couple scenarios ago, to connect to ether to produce energy, like free energy, which we can hit on free energy in a minute. We'll talk hydrogen. Make sure you make a note. But it's quite possible that at some point in the past, somebody figured out how to change the polarity of mercury. That went from being negatively charged to positively charged, which turned it into something that would create absolute chaos in the human body. So it's mercury that damages every system in the human body. It's neurotoxic, it's lipophilic, which means it gets into fat really quickly. And because it's so toxic, when you're exposed to it, it's going to go from, whether it's on your skin or in your mouth or injected into you, it's going to go from being in your bloodstream to in tissue really quickly, because if it circulates through your system, it's going to destroy you. But because it's a neurotoxin and lipophilic, it's going to get into tissue and create chaos. So this process is something that's passed down about 7 generations deep. And what they published in 1976 was that at the time they understood that about 30% of these environmental toxins were pushed from a woman into the placenta. Now we know that number is closer to 70 to 80%. But what you hear talked about so commonly now is a thing called MTHFR, right? And you have influencers saying get methylated vitamins and methylated B vitamins because of, you have an MTHFR issue. What they don't talk about is that the reason that you have a genetic anomaly in methylation is because there's a substance that in very early fetal exposure will shut off methylation. Because what is methylation? It's part of the body's, your liver pathways of detoxification. Now, would it not be amazing that you were exposed to a substance so nefarious that it shuts off the body's ability to get rid of it? It shuts off glutathione production. It shuts off methylation. That'd be mercury. So it's very early fetal developmental exposure to mercury that actually causes the SNPs to be incorrect in methylation. Well, you don't have an MTHFR issue, you have a mercury problem. So you have to start to go get the mercury, right? Because your body's natural detox pathways have 2 issues. One, we don't have the ability to deal with the environment in which we live. 2, the environmental toxins that we've been exposed to and have been exposed to since before the 1930s shuts off our body's ability to get them out anyway. So you have to have mechanisms to go get this stuff. And when you look at a couple things that have happened since 1976, in 1976, glyphosate was introduced. So glyphosate wasn't even in the market when this initial research was done. We didn't even have the data on glyphosate until about the last 10, 15 years ago to know how bad it really, really was. Now, Don Huber's been talking about it since 1976. And unfortunately, Don died last year. And I was able to have an amazing interview with him a few years ago talking about glyphosate in the market and what the truth is behind it. And how bad it is, because glyphosate isn't a weed killer. Glyphosate gives plants AIDS. So, do you think as a biological organism that if glyphosate gives plants AIDS, and genetically we're not too far away from plants because the nanobiotechnologist has clearly gone over the fact that we are as connected to a leaf on a tree and a plant as we are to ourselves or our animals. And all of that symbolism has been put in front of us to let us know that that's an absolute fact, because they made Avatar to show it to you, that we're already all connected. So if you have a substance that gives plants AIDS by destroying their immune system, which means the microbes that are in the soil are going to kill the weed or kill the plant, what happens to you? Now, what happens if you've got mercury in your system that amplifies the negative effects of other heavy metals or other environmental toxins? So the combination of those things actually makes things worse. This is what we're dealing with. These are the problems. So when you also know that in this same process of intelligent design, that our creator created a mechanism to clean up the environment in which we live in, because the creation of the environment actually is the largest producer of environmental toxins into the environment and has since the beginning of time. That's volcanic eruptions. So if volcanoes are continually, well, they used to be, I would think China and everybody else is a little bit ahead of them now, but volcanoes are the largest natural emitter of mercury and other heavy metals into the environment. Volcanic eruptions creating lava and all the noxious gases that come off of that. But at the same time, those volcanic eruptions created this class of crystals and clays like Clinoptilite and bentonite and heulandite and mordandite and asbestos and quartz, and I could go down the list of 84 of them. But this class of crystals and clays is what the Creator created to clean up the environment at the same time it was being terraformed. And if that process wasn't linear, life couldn't exist on the planet. That's intelligent design. So therefore, that argument is off the table. The key has been how to take this amazing little crystal, and the primary one when it comes to environmental cleanup happens to be Clinoptilite. I've been fortunate to be around this stuff for 20 years and have been able to work with the DOE at Livermore. One of my friends is one of the top researchers at Livermore. Now, the DOE has been using Clinoptilite for probably 50 plus years because they know as a crystal and as a rock, and you can use it as in its rock form or in a graveled form or in a pebbled form, in a sand form, or you can grind it into a powder, and it can be used in environmental remediation from oil spills and gas spills and all of these different environmental issues, radioactive meltdowns like Fukushima. It was bags of clinoptilolite that they were putting along the seawall to try to detoxify a lot of the radioactive water that was dumping into the Pacific Ocean when Fukushima melted down. Right? So this crystal is very well known, very well established. It's been used in biotech as a delivery mechanism because it has the ability to hold a lot of water and it has the ability to do a cationic exchange process. Well, that cationic exchange process is one where you can load it with stuff, and when it's put into an environment where there's other heavy metals or other components, it will exchange them. So if from a biotech standpoint, you could take this crystal and load it with different pharmaceutical components, and then when it's ingested in, say, a pill, a compressed pill that's using some clinoptilolite, the clino is holding on to the drug is then consumed, and it releases the drug when it's in that acid environment and improves delivery. Well, it's also used in detoxification of the gut. It's what kaopectate is derived from. But if it's processed properly and broken apart correctly, and being one who's been part of this substance in this environment for the last 20 years, what Christina's been able to do is something that no one's ever done before in this space. It's why she holds multiple patents on the process. Everybody else is playing with clinoptilolite is doing something that destroys it, and that's using like phosphoric acid as a bath. And what they do in this process is they dissolve the silica, which destroys the most valuable piece to this entire puzzle. And by dissolve, so if you've ever put salt in water, you get an idea of this when it dissolves, right? But if you put salt, and you still have salt in solution, and this is what a lot of these liquid zeolite companies will claim. What you don't understand is that in process, if they are processing it at all, if they're using phosphoric acid, which is not breaking apart or suspending it, it's actually dissolving the bioavailable silica. And clinoptilolite is a sodium aluminosilicate. So if you dissolve the silica, you're left with sodium and aluminum and phosphoric acid that's diluted. Those things are not good for you over an extended period of time. What Christina figured out how to do by being a nanobiotechnologist is use a process of cryogenic fracking and thermal shock and a washing process that uses like lemon juice. So it doesn't damage anything. It actually washes out a lot of the other components, the heavy metals and such, out of the cage structure. And then she loads it with trace minerals from sea salt. Why sea salt? Because that's where we come from, seawater, and a little ascorbic acid, so naturally sourced vitamin C, which binds to the cage structures, which improves permeability. So you've got multiple patents behind the process. You've got proven clinical case studies. You've got patents now that are filed for using Clean Slate in conjunction with Restore and Zero N for the now, and I'm not making medical claims because these are patents, right? And this has already been proven. One patent that was filed in September of last year for the reversal of autism. Patent that was filed a couple weeks ago for the reversal of colon cancer. Another one for dementia. Another one for different neurological conditions. It's about 60 more patents that she's already got filed or are in the process of filing right now. because of what we've proven over the last 5.5 years in real clinical data. And this has been that point of what you and I and your community and the rest of the Rootiverse over the last 5.5 years has been doing, is we've been behaving the same way that the pharmaceutical industry is required to behave. The difference is 5.5 years ago, when the pharmaceutical industry decided to launch some mRNA vaccines that should have never been put in the market because the data from 20 years ago showed that they killed everything. Now, how do I know that the data shows that they killed everything? Because she happened to have been working at Bristol Myers Squibb on HIV research with the first mRNA vaccines, and she knew all the data. She watched what they did. She was at Harvard from 2018 to 2020, working with 18 other, some of the smartest people in biotech and the military and research. And they were all saying they will never use these mRNA vaccines because they kill everything. And you cannot vaccinate into a live viral environment because you'll create mutations like crazy. And if you do use these, they're going to kill everyone. And what did they do? And they did. Right. So they put this mandate. But then you know what came out like a month ago or 2 months ago? Did you see what the CDC announced? That the Moderna and Pfizer mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 are banned. They are, that which they made mandated people get are now banned.
Wow.
Now, is it interesting that you've not seen the director of HHS actually come out and state that publicly? They just put it on the website very quietly and said, you know what? These two are on the banned list. Not that they're not recommended, not that they're not required, not any of that. No, they are freaking banned because the data shows what they've known for a long freaking time. Now, could it be that if you knew the data on that and you happen to be a nanotechnologist and a bioscience engineer, that you could reverse all of that stuff because you understand the mechanisms and you knew how to create the multi-steps that the body would need to do that? You would have to find something and create something that would grab onto and bind all the bad stuff, these nanoparticles and everything that people are talking about, and at the same time deliver the key trace minerals. But then you'd also have to work on healing the gut and allowing it to reduce systemic inflammation and kill off some of the fungus and parasites, because people don't have a parasite problem. Let's get that really clear. Parasites are a byproduct of process. Oh, and then we get into the fun part. And you get to see that the body makes changes. So this is actually HRV data. And what's crazy is this was done over 5 years ago. Right. So we did this 5 years ago. We didn't even do it. Dr. Stefan Rao did this, and he's a PhD in Germany that is a leader in research in heart rate variability. And this was based on a combination of using 10 drops of clean slate and 2 capsules of 0N, and actually waiting 45 minutes. So let's make sure we make this really, really clear, because as we were talking about initially, and as Michael has hit on for this community, and if you're using patches and stickers and understanding that they're trying to reflect the body's energy back in through Chinese meridians, which is what those patches are doing, right? You can do this with holograms too, that the body's electrical. We're not talking about the digestive system, right? Because the digestive system might be a complete myth in its complete mechanism and process. So this was a baseline analysis, and then taking 10 drops of clean slate, 2 0N, and waiting 45 minutes, and then doing another test. Scroll down a little more. So this talks about clean slate 0, and keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Here's the first part. No, go back up a little bit. One more. Keep going right there. So if you look at the initial findings, you can see on the bottom 45-minute time difference between test and post-test. So what happened? So you had a reduction in stress, an improvement in cardiovascular function, right, with increases in dopamine and serotonin, better brain function and cognitive process, and overall well-being feeling improved, improved restful sleep, and improvement of psycho-emotional condition. Now, these things are kind of important in an environment that's extremely stressful, because if you can improve heart rate variability and autonomic nervous system, as well as dopamine and serotonin production, you would see all those things. But here's the crazy part. We know with 0N, it's an adaptogenic nootropic, and there's 100 milligrams of anhydrous caffeine per capsule. Anhydrous caffeine. But we know caffeine, there's different mechanisms, but caffeine is a stimulant. Caffeine being a stimulant means that if you're drinking coffee, it might give you a little boost. But if you use a different form of it and you use it in the right combination, it can be a stimulant for a chemical reaction. So at the bottom of this, what you have pulled up here is the heart rate and heart rate variability comparison. So if you look on the left, the before, you can see the heart rate, and below you see the rhythmogram where the variability isn't very good. And you can see the functions around 49, 47, 44%. 45 minutes later, so 2 capsules 0N, which is taking 200 megs of anhydrous caffeine, along with the 6 other siblings that are combined to make 0N. Notice the heart rate doesn't change, but look at the change in heart rate variability. Almost went from 40% function to almost 99 to 100% function across the board in 45 minutes. This is outstanding. This shows a couple things. One, it's not acting as a stimulant like coffee would, because the anhydrous caffeine and the mechanisms are actually causing a complete change in autonomic nervous system function. But simultaneous to that, you see that this is electrical, because you can't do that if the digestive system actually has to process everything. And this shows when you start to clean stuff up and simultaneously feed what the body needs for dopamine and serotonin production, that you get significant changes. So, and then we can go through, we can look at the vegetative state and scroll down. We won't go through a lot of this because it's really, really cool, but there's a podcast, and I think I sent you the link for the podcast. So there was a podcast that was done that's about 20 minutes long that talks through all of this data. And what it does, you can see like the blue and green in the brain in the post analysis, and what it does for alpha, theta, delta waves in the brain, the improvements in 45 minutes. This is like ridiculous. But some of the stuff that's important, I think, for your audience, scroll down a little more, as we dive into the electrical components of, oh, hold on, check this out. So we talk about biological age, right? People are talking about the difference between biological and chronological age. Chronological age is the time that you're here, right? We should be good for 120 years. I mean, scientifically, we know that. Christina's talked about that a lot. I'm not sure if you can blow this up a little bit so people can see it a little better, but the top chart that you see there is the biological age analysis. So Dr. Rao, this is actually his data. I'm going to scroll over a little bit so they can see this. So you can see he was 61 years old, right? When he did this. This was his birthday. His biological age is initially, go back. I want to see the chart. A little more right there. So you can see initially he's 61 years old. His biological age was 53, which is pretty good. He's 8 years younger than he was chronologically. Well, look at what happened 45 minutes later. He lost 2 decades. He went from being 53 biologically to 31.
Wow.
In 45 minutes. He didn't just lose pounds like people are trying to do. He lost 2 decades. 20 freaking years biologically in 45 minutes. That's kind of dope. So
Totally.
expand out of there a little bit, and we'll go down to a couple more that I think will be fun for this group. So we got that. Now here we go. So we know electrically that our body has an aura. We have chakras, doshas, meridians, right? Because all of these things can be measured electrically by our output. Look at what the aura print did initially. It was about 40% function, and then 45 minutes later, he went full supernova. Now, the interesting part with this is when you understand bioelectrically what we are, that our aura can go out 3 feet all around, which is why they wanted us 6 feet apart in the first place. But when you look at the chakra map, you can see on the left, his chakra function was, man, his grounding chakra wasn't very good. Root chakra is my favorite, by the way. Who knew? But his function and performance was around 40 to 50%. And then look at what happened 45 minutes later. Look at his pineal gland. Look at his third eye. Went from a 41 to a 94. It just like, boom, went wide open. Now imagine what happens. This was one dose. Imagine what happens when you do this consistently daily. Now go down to the meridians, because this is with the work you're doing with your community and the talk. Now expand upon this one a little bit. And the talk about pushing energy back into specific meridians. This is where you have the important combination of taking care of the antenna and cleaning it up and feeding it on the inside so it's expressing more power and putting out more energy, so then you can reflect more back in. Because if you can't clean up your pathways and the signaling mechanisms, they're not going to work effectively. But if you do these things in combination, you'll light up like a freaking Christmas tree. So you can look at heart, spleen, bladder, kidneys, pituitary, thyroid, stomach, liver, lungs, gallbladder, all these meridians. And you can see on the left how the function of these is anywhere from 40 to 60%. And the expression is on the inside of the chart in the middle, where you see the blue and the red. But then 45 minutes later, you're looking at between 88 and 100% efficiency across the board. And the expression of those meridians has all gone to the outer edges and almost perfect across the board.
Wow.
That's bioelectrical improvement that then allows you to start functioning the way that we've been created. And then you can see the last one with your doshas, which basically aligns with Ayurveda and how the improvements are. So this has been the fun part of being able to show scientifically, and now having the clinical data of looking at lab work and looking at clinical outcomes that has led to patents being filed to show, look, for a vaccinosis concern, you're going to see these things reversed and removed. And as we know, with heart rate variability, it doesn't lie. I mean, the amount of information that can be gathered from HRV is where science is going. This is why you're wearing rings and you're wearing watches and you're wearing wristbands that are tracking your heart rate variability. But here's the interesting part, and I'm going to give this audience a hint, because we're going to launch this probably 90 to 120 days. If we get everything done, because my chief technical officer and the team, they did this in Singapore 5.5 years ago. So the wearable space, people are familiar with Aura and Whoop and Apple and Samsung. What most people probably don't know, hold on, the Coco D wants to come out of the office, is that those devices don't use any medically approved sensors. Go ahead, go get them. Right, so they're using basically sensors that are used for fun. The data that they're gathering is not medically viable. It's not as accurate. And so my chief technical officer, who was the chief technical officer at Cisco, when they were doing $5 billion a year and took them up to $100 billion a year, he and his team built the data fabric systems at Bay Microsystems. They built the tax system for the government of Japan. These guys are like Christina's a bioscience engineer. They're biosystems engineers and tech. They're not hackers. Right. And this has been the hard part for people to comprehend, is you've got all these biohackers that are literally hacks. And then you've got hackers in the computer space that are literally hacks. And they might get your password, or they might play with apps and stuff, but they're not able to create on a data fabric system, a hardware and operating system standpoint, because they're just not skilled in it. They just don't have the knowledge and the experience. But if you have a bioscience engineer or you have a systems engineer, these guys are able to do some stuff that actually changes the way that we do commerce, because that's what everything's been built on. I mean, you look at what Cisco's behind and you go, huh, they're pretty smart, right? So what they did 6 years ago is create wearables that have 8 different medically approved sensors. Right? Did you know that you can there's a specific sensor from Siemens that uses, not that kind of semen, ladies, sorry, but a specific green and yellow laser that's in a little sensor that measures blood sugar, and you don't need needles, that you can wear a wearable and it'll track your blood sugar constantly. So they did a collab with the Singapore government and had the government was issuing them to all of the residents and started tracking all the data. Well, because of that population analysis that they were able to get, they dropped the healthcare spend by the country by 65% in 3.5 years.
Wow.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So now Singapore and most other countries outside the United States have some semblance of socialized healthcare. So the government's actually wanting to keep people healthy. Our system is not based on that because it's rather satanic. So we will be deploying these rather shortly. But here's the crazy part. So the tech on this is more advanced than the most current iWatch, right? And more advanced than the most advanced Samsung watch available on the market. These things cost $16 to make. $16 to have tech that's more advanced than what Apple does. So that means Apple's cost on theirs is about $9. Yet they're charging you $1,000 for it. So we're going to give them away.
Wow.
We're going to give away the wearables, and that way people will be able to have their data. And part of the agreement is they will agree to provide the de-identified data, so none of their personal information, but the de-identified data into the large language, small language, AI modeling that's been used in Singapore to allow all of this data to be aggregated and used. So you'll have a digital twin that will tell you, and you'll own and control all this. No one has access to it unless you give permission to it, which is the cool part. This is called SSI. Right, self-sovereign identification. This is a concept that was designed by one of the chief engineers at Microsoft about 11 years ago, but Microsoft didn't want to roll it out, so they spent the last decade developing it, and it's ready to deploy now. I've been fortunate to work with my chief technical officer, who is one of the designers for the last year in getting this market ready, because we collectively are all about decentralization. Because MAHA and MEGA don't have .gov at the end of it. It's all going to be done by us entrepreneurially. It's going to be companies and businesses and communities coming together to solve these problems, because government's not going to solve it. Here, let's be truthful about governments. Power, money, control. Those 3. That's all that they care about. If they cared about anything else, we wouldn't be where we are, would we? So you have these implementation of mechanisms that are really, really important. And, we've already got the data. But here's the part I wanted to hit on, because I guess we haven't done a good job of talking about this prior. And that's probably my fault. When I was developing the ecosystem around Root, I wanted to create a mechanism that created an environment that would serve as an example for how businesses should behave as we go forward. So the fintech system that is behind Root is designed to reward people not only for their direct influence, like Michael, you've done such an amazing job, but also their indirect influence. And so people understand multi-level marketing in some aspects, that when you share, you can create value. I haven't done a very good job of explaining, and maybe to you and in your community, is the fact that if you create value and you share with friends, you'll be rewarded in a manner that you've never seen before. Because we literally, when I built the algorithm, I built it to take about 45 to 48% of the top line revenue and put it back into people. No BV, CV, QV bullshit, dollar for dollar. Because if we were starting a business now, a retail business, we're gonna put in our business plan that 40 to 50% of our revenue is going to be spent on marketing. right? Top line revenue is just going to keep going back into advertising and marketing because you want to continue to grow top line revenue, because you want to grow top line revenue because when you exit, that's what your valuation is based upon. Why don't you just put that in people? Because we're already all connected, right? We're 6 degrees from 6.5 billion people. So if you have real numbers and you do it algorithmically, not formulaically, right? Because the MLM industry is based on formula, right? That's why the, binaries will break, they creep, they have all the problems, and why, they claim one thing, but the numbers actually work out to something a lot lower. How do I know this? Because I've made a lot of money in the MLM industry a long time ago. I built organizations that are larger than most, and I've had a lot of experience from being a distributor, being a manufacturer, formulator in and around the space. So we built a mechanism, and I'm not saying don't do those things, right? Because if you find something that you like and you're passionate about and you can't get rewarded for it, you should do it.
Yeah.
But you should also be aware that if you go to the casino, you're not going to go there to get rich, because that's not what casinos are built upon, right? They're built upon making sure the odds are forever in their favor.
Right.
Right. So if you know that going in, you can plan accordingly. But the same thing in any investment portfolio, you should understand that diversification is imperative, right? And that your influence is insanely valuable. So as an entrepreneur, and I do this in my daily life, of the collaborations that I build with organizations, I understand my value. I really understand my value, right? So and I know my reach, because I know that I'm not just 6 degrees from 6.5 billion people, and most of you should understand this. We talk about being 6 degrees from 6.5 billion people. Most of us are not. Most of us are 3 or 4. So think about that. Your influence, your direct influence, can have the impact on the entire planet that is connected to some semblance of technology. That means you're infinitely valuable. That is why you don't own or control any of your data right now, because your behavior has created multiple trillion-dollar market valuations for companies. Think about that. Look at the top 5 and you go, wow, they're all tech companies. And we did it. And we didn't get a damn thing for it, because they're farming out your data. And what's crazy is I just saw I'm not going to talk about mobile because that's coming too. But just today, I was reading the news this morning, and there was an influencer and an influencer family that is launching a mobile collab, an MVNO mobile collab, that they're not doing it on one platform. They're doing it on 3 platforms all simultaneously. So T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T, all simultaneously. So when you look at that, they're trying to get people to buy into buying a specific plan for mobile. And they did it on 3 primary platforms. You know what that means? That they're selling your data to all 3 platforms simultaneously. So
Wow.
you might be an AT&T customer, but they're going to take that data and they're going to provide it to Verizon and T-Mobile. You might be on T-Mobile, they're going to provide it to AT&T and Verizon. And I know that for $47 a month, they're charging $20 a month more, even than what Ryan Reynolds was charging at Mint, and they're using the same freaking platform. So what Ryan Reynolds was, and this is the thing with MVNO, if you built an entirely new infrastructure that was 100% secure and can run at a gig, and took you off of that because it could run globally through the Wi-Fi band, that would be dope. Now, you need a team of systems engineers that knew how to do that. That's called foreshadowing. We won't get there. But imagine a marketing genius that says we would get you to pay $47 a month versus like $25 to $27 a month, and use a phone that is antiquated, that maybe costs about $70, and get you to buy it for $499. So before you go buying the hype, you best do your research. And because your data is very, very valuable, and your behavior is very, very valuable, and you should apply it accordingly. And if companies are not willing to invest in you and they don't align with who you are and what you are and what you want to invest in, you probably shouldn't give them your money. And that's, I've wanted to rant with you for a while. You haven't had a chance to speak yet. I just came on and started yelling, but I'm
Yeah,
kind of good at that.
I mean, because you're the expert at root. So the little monitor for blood sugar, how does that work? Does it puncture?
No,
No,
bro, it's all light.
all light.
So,
Okay,
hold on. Do I have my watch here? I have my watch at the house, so I have one. I mean, it's like an iWatch, right? So when you look at, if you've got an Apple Watch or an iWatch, you can look on the back. No, this is not one of those. Yeah, so you've got yours on. If you take it off and you look at the back, there's 4 little sensors on the back,
right.
right? So on ours, there's 8, right? So you see those 4. Those are not medical grade sensors. Right. Those are basically fun sensors that do they'll scan a couple things. They'll measure heart rate variability. One of those that's in our device measures blood sugar and a few different things because it's medically approved as I forgot the exact number. It's a Siemens sensor, just like they use in hospitals and such, that if you've got a pulse oximeter on, that those are medically approved different sensors that are measuring stuff, that the specific wavelengths of green and yellow light will actually can be used to measure blood sugar amongst other things, right? And this lets you know that your skin, right, and especially for the work you've been doing from a LifeWave standpoint, is people should understand that light is emitted, right? But our body also responds to light. Why is red light therapy important?
Hmm.
Because your skin responds to it, and so do your cells. This is why you have to be in the sun. I got banned on I got banned on TikTok for this conversation. You don't need sunscreen.
Oh, really? Wow. Oh,
TikTok, I'm not
that's
allowed
really
to do
bad.
lives on
They've made a
TikTok
lot of
anymore.
money on that, and they've
Holy
given a lot of people
shnikes.
cancer. So yeah.
Right? Oh, let's talk cancer in a second. But do you know why people burn? People burn for the same reason that you're not supposed to put metal in the microwave. Interesting. So your body is a bioelectrical antenna, right? Your pineal gland is what connects us to our source, but heavy metals like mercury, lead, and aluminum can go in your body and create disruptions and resonate with other frequencies and other microwaves, electromagnetic frequencies. These 5G, 4G, 3G, Wi-Fi, all this stuff doesn't affect you
Hmm.
if you're clean. Now, if you have those metals in you, it's like putting a metal tray in a microwave. It's going to heat up and it's going to cause problems. But if you don't have those metals in your system, your body is no longer reactive to the outside environment. This is a law of physics. My wife proved this to me last year when we were in Mexico and I was in the pool because I'm a Pisces. I love to be in the water, especially salt water. And we know that sound is more conductive underwater. So I actually did a live. I was on Wi-Fi at the resort, and I'm like, in the sound, they had speakers underwater as
Nice.
well as outside. And so the sound is better underwater. And I'm an audiophile. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go underwater. I'm gonna do a live. This is gonna be dope because it's gonna sound so good. And so it's saltwater pool. So I got my phone on, I'm on Wi-Fi, and I go underwater, and I'm like, this is cool. And I lost my signal. Came out of the water, had my signal. Go underwater again, lost my signal. Came out of the water, had my signal. And me not being the smart guy, I wander down to my wife. I'm like, babe, can I ask a question? And she's like, yes, you may, because I have to ask permission. And like, does saltwater block Wi-Fi signals? She's like, oh yeah, it's a law of physics. It's like a law of eminence of that frequencies like electromagnetic frequencies are blocked by saltwater. I'm like, so does that mean since the human body is 70% salt water, if we're not loaded with heavy metals, then we won't receive those signals because it's not the fact that we're water based, that's causing any problem. It's the fact that we're loaded with heavy metals that is actually receiving those electromagnetic frequencies that people have a concern over. And she's like, yeah, that's the law of physics. I'm like, how come we
Wow.
haven't had this conversation? Because that's kind of important for people to understand.
That's brilliant. Another
And you
reason
go,
to use root to detoxify.
and it goes to that aspect of, you've got to, if you clean the vessel is not going to be resonant with a toxic environment, because we are intelligently designed. And if you understand that we are intelligently designed, that this entire fractal environment was intelligently designed, then you should accept that that which is being played against us has to be manufactured, because its existence naturally in the environment is not something that is going to be resonant with us, because that's not how we were created. We were created divinely. We were created as the most advanced biological battery and computing system that's ever been created. Still are. Maybe that's why prisons are so popular, because they're just taking all the energy from people and housing it and using it. Maybe we are too. So if you understand that premise, then
Like
your
Matrix,
sole
yep.
purpose, the which one?
Sounds like the Matrix.
It is, and the beautiful part of the Matrix is understanding not just the red pill, blue pill, right? People took the most simple component of red pill, blue pill, and like, oh my God, this is the key to the Matrix. No, because what did Neo need once he took the red pill? What did he have to find in order to start this process? Well, he needed the Trinity. He needed Trinity. Is there symbolism in there? But then what did he go through this process of what did they do? They sat him in a chair and they plugged him in and bumped right there. Well, what did they do? They put a bunch of light on his pineal gland, because that's the quickest way to get to your pineal gland. Your pineal gland, everybody talks about being here. The easiest access point is here. So then you go through the understanding of the environment that he lived in, right? What was the key lesson? There was no spoon. There's no disease. There's no disorders. There's no syndrome. There's no controller. There is no spoon. That's what you perceive. The fact is, you're the one. Not that he was the one. You're the one. I was having this conversation with one of Russell Brand's really good friends when I was in London a couple of weeks ago. We'll talk. Is it okay if we talk theology real quick?
All right.
So there's this book called the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate reading, but I'll read a lot, and then I'll ask a lot of questions. So one of my mentors, he was a dude that was a carpenter, and was hammering nails and stuff at home, and everybody's like, yeah, you know what, you're born interesting. And it's like your mom was conceived without your father, getting the job done. And but you're just hammering nails. And then after a little while of doing some stuff in his hometown, he went for a walk, right? And then he was like turning water into wine, and showing people how to fish, and kicking it with his homies, and glowing in the dark, and turning over tables, and sitting down with prostitutes and tax collectors, and being like, yo, don't do that. You should follow a better approach. You should be a good person, do all these things, be like me. And then because of what he was doing, they killed him, right? They said, you know what, here's a cross to bear. Wear this thing for a little bit. We're going to beat the snot out of you. Then we're going to hang you up on the hill. See how you do. And he died. And a couple days later, he said, I'm back, bitch. And so they saw this resurrection, right? And then did he get resurrected and then leave? No. He came back in his spirit form, kicked ass, took names, chewed bubblegum, kicked Satan's ass, sent him down to the hole for 1,000 years, and said, look, I'm going to create greatness. Now, what is talked about is that would be considered the golden age. Now, part of that deal was that after that 1,000 years was done, Satan got to come out of the hole, because Christ, he came, he saw, he died, he came back, kicked ass, showed everybody who he was, Everybody knows he's the son of God. Said, you know what? Here you go. Done my job. Konnichiwa, bitches. I'm out. Now, that means Satan was able to come back, and now we're playing in his playground. That means maybe the people that are siding with him might have changed some of history just to skew things a little bit. Maybe the literature that's being written isn't being written in the light of Christ. Maybe it's being skewed a little bit to keep you controlled and keep you thinking that, oh, don't worry, he's going to come back. Because if you just keep waiting, you're not going to win. So when you look at that and you go, why is it that when you look at history, there was a period of time that we call the Dark Ages? But if you actually go back in the historical record, and you'll not find color images of the Dark Ages, but if you look at the infrastructure globally of the architecture and everything that was built in the time of the Dark Ages, it wasn't dark. Some of the greatest infrastructure that's ever been built in what we can perceive as history that is still right in front of our eyes. You can go to some of the coolest cities on this planet and see the infrastructure. You can go to Rome and look at some of the stuff that's been built, and even in 2,000 years, it hasn't come apart. Earthquakes and everything, it still exists because it was built not in a dark age, but a golden age, but they flipped it on us. And that you're being taught and told by a bunch of people that have not been good. Maybe they're not evil, but maybe they made a deal. And they've gone over, they're not on the complete dark side, but they're on the darker shade of gray. Not
Yep.
there's 50 there was there 50 shades of gray? Maybe they're like a 47 or a 48. They could be a 45, but they're sure as hell not a 2. Right? So maybe it's the point that we've been deceived a little bit, and we have to wake up to the fact that we are the one, that we are made in his image, that we are all not the same. We are not made equally, right? Because each one of us, as my favorite philosopher has written, that we're each an imperfect piece to a perfect puzzle, that we are each divinely created to create humanity. And it's our job to figure out who we are, that if we do this collectively, we'll solve this. But if we keep doing all this satanic shit, all this warfare, all these killing kids, raping kids, this satanic pedophilia stuff, everything that's going on globally, and we don't understand that, as Christina's gone over, all of this stuff going on in Israel, all of this stuff going on in Iran, all this stuff going on in Mexico, all this chaos going all over the world has an effect on every single one of us. All the time. And it's our job to solve it. No one else is coming to save us. That's the test. Because you know what happens if we don't figure out the test? They just wash the board and start over. And as some of my new colleagues are telling me, that maximum 5 years. Most likely, we've got a year. So if we don't wake the up, well, shit's going to get real ugly, and it really doesn't matter what you want to complain about, because we're going to be living in hell. And that's where we sit. So this is the journey of trying to do what we're supposed to. I mean, you know how to do remote viewing. So is my wife. I mean, you, like we talked about before, you can see up to 2030. That's what most remote viewers have done. They're like, there's a block at 2030. So what does that mean? Why is there a block? Because this shit ends if we don't change it.
Yep.
It's not that they can't
That's
see
the way
past.
2012 was. And then we got closer, and then I was able to, just like the last few months, I was like, okay, we're good. I can see on the other side now. So
It's like, oh, we got to that point. It's like, but we
yeah.
only get another 18. Why are we here? What? And I think it's been a minute since we got to chat. I was over in the UAE working with one of our friends who's a royal family member, and he's like, "Look, you understand your country was hijacked on September 11th and is run by Satanists?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He said, "But I can't say that at home because I'm a conspiracy theorist." And they're like, "No, that's true." And I'm like, "You guys are connected to this whole thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no." They're like, "We know Christ," and it was one of the coolest things because I was there with Christina and one of our partners and one of our attorneys over there, and I was with His Highness at their family palace with he and his right hand guys, just the three of us going over some of this. And the next day, we got to go to his place in Abu Dhabi, and so we're sitting it is his place, which is kind of cool. And he's like, "You want to pray with me?" And my attorney was like, he looked at me, looked at Christina, and looked at our partner, and he's like, "They don't do this." He said, "One, royals never do this." I'm like, "Absolutely, we want to." So we got to go through the process of washing and then
Oh, cool.
getting arranged and doing prayer. And he's like, "We know Christ." And I was like, "Yeah, you know who he is." He said, "But you also follow Muhammad." So we're aligned in that aspect. But from a spiritual standpoint, I'm not looking at construct. I'm looking at spirituality for who we are and how we're all connected. And it's like, yeah, we need to get rid of the bullshit. And everybody's aligned in that. So it's the interesting part of how this whole system is being played against us to keep us from becoming what we're made to be, right? Because you're put in this box that you're just continually given a bunch of noise, and they want you to buy into the noise. A lot of that's on your mobile device, right? The shit that you're consuming, the algorithms that are just feeding you content. I didn't know I loved fishing so much until I watched a couple fishing videos, and now 30% of what I get on social media is fishing videos, which is freaking great. But when you think about that, it's like you're going to be fed even the little things that you think you consume, so it just constantly causes you to loop. So it keeps you in a matrix of consumption that the beast is tailoring to keep you away from you doing what you're made to do, which is become the best version of yourself. And that's the crazy part of this is once you get out of the loop and you realize that, wait a minute, I'm the bad motherfucker. Each one of us is, and that this is our job, right? We have to do this, and we have to do work in the community. If people stop giving money to sources that didn't give back, right? And I'm not just talking about businesses. I'm talking about, why don't you, when you go to church, if you go to church, look at where your money's going, right? Joel Osteen, shit. I mean, the amount of money that dude generates every week for his church shouldn't be a lot of problems in Dallas. But I'm pretty sure, I don't know if he's got multiple helicopters. I've flown in one, but you can only fly in one at a time. And when you really start to take analysis of where your money's going, what your behavior is doing, what your intention is going to create, there's a reason that you can see the eye of the wolf behind me, right?
That's
And there's a
right.
reason that there's a cross in the middle of our logo. There's a reason that our mantra is create greatness, because we're made in the image of it. It's been the process all along, right? When we look at these NIL concepts of all these kids coming with their hand out because they think they're special. What did Michael Jordan come out and say? I never got a deal. I had to earn it. But the goal is to become great. And when you do that, you will earn accordingly. Look at all the goodies.
You got a lot of them now.
There's different packs, different. Have we talked about Sculpt and Crush?
Yes.
Oh man, Dylan broke his wrist playing rugby. I'll send you the images. He literally his wrist went full hinge. I mean, his hand touched the back of his wrist,
Hey.
and I have the radiographs. I'll text them to you. So he literally broke his the end of his ulna. I mean, complete fracture,
Wow.
and repaired it in a week. So he increased his dosage of a little "Give Me Back My Youth" and started taking more Crush. And the injury was so bad, his arm was so swollen they couldn't cast it. Right, so they wrapped it for a week, He went back in to get his follow-up x-ray to see if they could cast it, and it had already healed completely, and he was back playing rugby 3 weeks later. One, he looks like freaking Wolverine anyway, but this stuff is insane. It's his favorite product from a sports performance standpoint. But and if you like to travel, Root Travel is dope. It's a subscription base for $27 a month, and it gives you access to the wholesale engine that travel agents get. So like
Nice.
I've say, well, I mean, it's $27 a month. So you're looking at, what is that, $300 a year, less than about $300 a year. And the whole comp plan is actually built upon it because it's an RPS order for a Root Prime. It's a subscription, model, which you can cancel at any time. But the RPS model, so if you have 20 customers that are on Root Prime, it could be 19 other customers and yourself, you get $10 per month per person as a bonus. So with the RPS bonus, if you just did the travel, right? If you just did this, you have the 15% and the 10%, and 20%, 20 points is commissionable on the $27 that it costs, because I had to build it because of this RPS bonus that you can make. Let me see, 15% is $3. You can make 13 to, let me see, 15% is 3, and you can make like $15 of the 20 bucks that are commissionable on your own, just by getting customers that want to travel. Like we saved $5,000 on Christina's last trip to Dubai. She was at the Mandarin Oriental in Dubai. She was there for 5 or 6 days, and we saved $5,000.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty good. But all my trips to Vegas, my trips to LA, I save like anywhere from 130. I save at least $130 a night when we stay in LA at our favorite place. But like if you wanted to go to Vegas, you can get nights in Vegas for $5 or $6 a night right now if you wanted to stay at some places, or like the Stratosphere, and I think there was one other one. It's like $5 or $6 a night. But if like the Win, and I've done this at the counter. I've been at the counter and said, okay, what's the price for a room? And they're like, it's 533. And I'm like, well, I can get it for 380, and do it on my app and hit send. And within 15 seconds, it's in their system and it's done. And it's just clockwork. So that's a great way, especially with summertime coming now, that if you are going to travel, you want to go out, and this is global. Like if you wanted to go to the Maldives or something, the savings are insane. So if you want to get away from stuff, you want to go to Mexico, you want to go to Asia, you want even around the United States, it's worthy of paying attention to. And because of it being in the ecosystem, it's very financially friendly if you want to share. I mean, you could do TikToks if you weren't like me and banned on TikTok, to just show people, hey, do you want to travel? You can pay this on Expedia, or you can pay less. Which one do you want?
That's
So,
it. All right, Clayton. It's been great. Any final words before we sign off?
you know
Great
what?
job.
The one thing, I got to send you a text message, but and one of our ambassadors, her son was just murdered in Washington. And so, as a parent, I've been praying for you guys and giving you lots of love. And the Michelangelo kid in one of the pictures you posted, love that kid. And this aspect of this shitty environment that we live in right now and how it's affecting all of us is something that we all have to pay attention to,
Yeah.
because none of us is immune from chaos. And I think the big part is understanding that we are all connected. So I've got lots of love for you, you and Tracy Joe and family. And I didn't get to call and talk. I think I sent text messages, but I think this is the most important part, is everybody has to come together, from a community standpoint, and understand that our job, just as we were talking about, is to lift each other up and to become better, but also knowing that not everybody in this space is meant to be on our team, right? The evil does exist in this environment, and that's done a lot to skew people away from being what they are. And you have to pay attention to this, because just all of these people that are pitching shit on social media, holy hell. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is not intended for your betterment, right? And if you look in someone's eyes, you can see it. I mean, but I mean, it's like, look at me. But I mean, this is our time, right? We've talked about this for years. We're in the middle of an ascension event and an extinction event. And while we're not encased here, right? We exist within this for the learning process and everything that we're supposed to do, because we're here for a reason. But we're here for a bigger purpose. Some of us are not here for a long time. Some of us are here for a good time, and we're all here to learn from each other. And sometimes it's painful, but yeah, it's relish what you're given, because I don't think we understand the gifts that we're given, honestly, and why we're here and what we're capable of doing. And hopefully, we collectively can do what we can to unlock people and turn the lights up a little bit and see how people can glow in the dark. I appreciate it. Let's have some fun.
Beautiful, Clayton. Thank you, sir. And thanks for everybody that joined us, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And therootbrands.com, use Jaco. And once you've signed up, you can use your name to share. So,
and if you've already got an account, share that with your friends.
Definitely.
And ask some questions. Konnichiwa, my friends.
Konnichiwa. All right. Cheers.